I do mean a load of stuff to review. This has been one very busy news day. We're going to give it just a minute for everybody to join the stream and make sure that everything is functioning the way it should. I want to say hello to everyone on Facebook, and of course on YouTube, Twitch, and let's see, Twitter. So we're getting our folks to start joining us. Welcome again to everyone. If you have any comments, please follow the comment guide below. It should simply be common sense, PG rated, that type of thing. Also, if you're someone that's going to watch this, like it's a replay that you're watching, I will try to leave markers at the bottom, or they're automatically generated with YouTube, and you can just skip to the section that you find most interesting. That way you don't have to listen to something that you may not be here to listen for. But we have an action-packed day, no doubt about it. Hello, Kim. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate it. Always appreciate it when you stop by and say hello. Zach, thanks for joining. Appreciate everybody. Come on in. We're starting to fill up. It looks like everything's working. Twitch looks good. We got a few viewers on, I guess they call it X now. Yeah, I meant to say Twitch a second ago. Twitch, and of course, YouTube and Facebook. Thank you all so much. We're going to start diving right into it. This has been a very busy news day, as I said. The main things we're going to talk about today, at least this is my goal. Number one, tomorrow, of course, is Fannie Willis close day, right? This is like where they're all going to come together. I should be right on top of this. I have a direct feed set up with the judge through his public feed. It's not like he knows me personally. I didn't want to give that perception, but I do have a direct line. I think he also has one via Zoom, but at any rate, what I've done before seems like it works, so I'm going to continue doing what I've been doing so we can cover it and narrate it as we go along. What should happen tomorrow morning around 9 or 9:30 Eastern Standard Time is the judge is going to hear closing arguments. Basically, he calls it arguments. It is not a jury trial, as we've been discussing many times. So it is going to be somewhat a little informal. The main thing is each attorney, or I should say each side, will probably be allotted an equal amount of time to basically sway the judge as to why he should see the facts of this case the way he should see them. I would imagine, for example, each side may be awarded 3 hours, and I'm just speculating here, but Ashley Merchant, since she's the lead attorney that brought the motion to begin with, this evidentiary hearing, she'll probably be allotted 30 minutes or whatever to make her statement. My best guess is generally with this many attorneys and the fact that they have been a good complement to Ashley Merchant. You know how much I love Ashley and how well she's been doing. I'm guessing here she's going to be working in conjunction. Let's just call them co-counsels. They're not exactly co-counsels. They represent different defendants. And of course, she represents Michael Roman, who we have talked about repeatedly on this program. I can assure you, Fannie Willis, Nathan Wade are not going to be sleeping good tonight, because if this judge rules the way that he should rule, they have some serious criminal exposure. They, in all likelihood, not only be disbarred from this case, but they could be facing some serious criminal culpability, not just perjury, but basically a fraud on the court. And I'm here to tell you that's not good news. That's very, very bad news for them. I don't really like to see anybody serve jail time, but if I'm being perfectly honest with you, who would deserve it more than them? At least a stench of 30 days or so. After all, they're trying to put all these people, grandma, grandpas, our beloved former president, in jail for up to 20 years per RICO count that they're found guilty of. That's the potential. Anyways, obviously, this is prima facie election interference. We have really drilled down on that, and we will continue to do so. As you know, I'm all over this Fannie Willis case, and Lord willing, I will continue to do so. Folks, today, the main news, the libs are going cuckoo. Charles, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining us from Tennessee. Let me know where y'all are from. We got 27, 30 people. Well, if you count all the platforms. Looks like we're heading to 40 right now. At any rate, if you wouldn't mind, take a second, say hello, and just let me know from what state or what part of the world you are from. It is always important. I should say it's always entertaining at least from my perspective, to see where everybody is from. Generally, we have people from all over the world. What a great platform! What a great blessing to be able to have a conversation and just chat. I mean, I'm just a guy here in Florida. I decided to get on the computer and I can talk to my new best friends all over the world. It's kind of exciting, kind of interesting. Back on what I'm talking about here, the liberal individuals, the libs, what is that, Keith Olbermann? We're going to see a video from him too. Oh my goodness, they are blowing their top. Put your own adjective or verb in there. They are going crazy because they realize this is a major, major victory day for Donald Trump. You can slice it up any way you want. We're going to drill down on this, but I have always said when it comes to the law, you do not want, and if you don't listen to anything I say today, listen to this because this can benefit your life. I'm not hyping this. I'm telling you this is the truth. You don't necessarily always want an attorney at law when it comes to a civil and or criminal matter. What am I talking about? You don't want an attorney at law. You want an attorney at stall. I love them fireworks. I got to figure out what causes that and correct that. I understand it's part of the Apple software, but if y'all don't mind some thumbs up and some fireworks once in a while, I guess I don't mind it either. Make sure you understood what I just told you because this is very important. There is an attorney at law. We all know what that is. It's a lawyer that represents you in court. The expression I have always used, it's just something I made up years and years ago, actually joking around with one of my best friends who is a retired former criminal defense lawyer out of Dallas, Texas. I would always say that what we need to do is we need to stall this case, stall the proceedings. Of course, the cases I was discussing with him were civil cases. They were basically cases involving money, not like this case, this RICO case in Georgia, which is obviously a serious felony case, but the principles are the same. And that is why the liberals are going crazy, crazy over this case, because they realize this is a de facto victory for former President Donald Trump and his co-defendants. Because when you stall a case, another way to think of it like this is justice delayed is justice denied from the perspective of the prosecutor, or in this case, the persecutor. When you're able to stall the case, you're able to win the case. The more time you can put between you and the criminal context, and the day the jury says, we, the jury, find blank, the better off you are as a general rule. So just remember that. It's something that I have had to teach many people because generally when we're having a problem, especially a criminal problem, the first thing you want to do is you're nervous, you're upset, you just want to make that pain, that problem go away. And that's a mistake. That is simply a mistake. You've got to learn to slow down, hand it off to your lawyer, and instruct your lawyer to slow things down. Now, why is this slow speed important for former President Donald Trump? Well, obviously, this case is all about election interference. This case, and I'm not talking about Donald Trump's behavior as election interference. I'm talking about the prosecutors, specifically the nutty Jack Smith, who serves as the quote unquote special prosecutor. We'll be getting into him at some point in the future. What a colorful, interesting history this individual has, and he has a record of losing cases. He tried and prosecuted the former governor, I believe it was the great state of Virginia, and his wife involving campaign finance violations. He brought them up on very, very serious charges, and he lost. Just full stop. He lost. There's no two ways about it. And there's a few other cases that we'll talk about at another time where he brought serious charges, serious felonious charges, and he lost. Just that simple. Hopefully, this case against Donald Trump is going to be another one in his loss column. I know that he is not a happy camper right now either. Back on when I'm talking about stalling, first of all, you have to understand, he works as an independent agent of the Department of Justice, the federal agency in our government, the Federal Department of Justice. They have an internal policy that states within 60 days of an election, they will do nothing pertaining to a case as far as taking a case to trial because they do not want to even give the perception that they are engaged in what we know they're engaged in, which is election interference. Of course, with Donald Trump, let's be honest about this and straightforward. The rules don't ever seem to apply to Donald Trump. And I'm not talking about Donald Trump not following the rules. I'm talking about everybody else having things a certain way. Every legal right is afforded to them. Every courtesy is afforded to them, but not former President Donald Trump. They keep telling us how he is not above the law. Well, I can tell you something too. He sure the heck is not below the law. And he has been burnt out of his opportunities to have full, complete due process. What I'm talking about here is that when this case was appealed to the U.S. Court of Appeals, he lost on that first round. Remember, the 3-judge panel were kind of making fun of him, saying something to the effect of, if you shot or you ordered SEAL Team 6 to shoot people, could you be held accountable for that? You know, just these ridiculous, way out there type questions. And I really don't think his attorney did a real good job answering that question either. But the takeaway, the point that you need to know is they lost that particular case. But after that, you are entitled to a full review, not just by the 3 judges. You can ask the entire U.S. Court of Appeals to intervene, but it takes more time. It is a stalling tactic. It's a stalling tactic. But it's afforded to everybody. And in all honesty, it is another due process review. It's not just for the purpose of stall. There are people that end up winning when they ask for a review from the full Court of Appeals. Even the U.S. Supreme Court has noted that they benefit by cases. That's why the cases have to come up through the courts, folks. If you're wondering why you can't generally just go to the U.S. Supreme Court, this is the reason. The U.S. Supreme Court wants the benefit of all these other lower courts, dicing, slicing, discovering, selecting, whatever you want to talk about. There's a lot that goes into a case as it moves up the food chain, so to speak. So by the time it gets to the U.S. Supreme Court, if they decide to hear the case, they have the benefit of a lot of documentations, a lot of things to review and to consider as they're trying to make the best judgment in a particular case. So in this particular instance, the takeaway is Donald Trump didn't get that benefit because the judge, what was that, Judge Chalkin, or her name's escaping me. If you know her name, you can put it in the comments for all of us. But the judge that is hearing this case is a Obama appointee, and she is not a good judge, in my humble opinion. She's very unfair. She did, however, put everything basically on hold while it was proceeding through the Court of Appeals. And while it was proceeding, and so this first round, he lost. The judge said, hey, listen, Mr. Trump, you can go ahead and ask the full Court of Appeals to review the case, but I'm not stopping the trial anymore. That's not fair. Everybody else is afforded a full review. Why shouldn't former President Donald Trump get a full, complete adjudication of justice? It's just that simple. He was not afforded that. The judge took a special swipe at him, if you will. Thank God the wisdom of our founding fathers appears to be at hand. He went ahead, instead of risking it by simply asking the full Court of Appeals to hear it, he went straight to the Supreme Court. Now, you have all these pundits saying, oh, the Supreme Court's going to dispatch this quickly. It's not going to last quickly. And when they eventually hear the case, they're going to make a decision quickly. I disagree entirely. If they wanted to handle this matter quickly, they could have already given a decision in this case. The Supreme Court obviously knows what I'm telling you, and that is to stall is to win. They realize the injustice that is going on in this particular case. So now that they have taken the case and stalled it, you got the liberal individuals that are freaking out, especially because all the other cases are going downhill quickly. They're all freaking out. They're all scrambling, wondering what they should do. The Supreme Court's not going to hear this case. I believe it's 2 months out, like the end of April, May, somewhere in there. Not only will they hear it at that time, you got to remember, it takes them time to make a decision. They could render a decision quickly, or they can take their time on it. They're under no obligation to release anything at any time. They're the bosses of the legal system. They can do whatever they want. They could also take the case and remand it. What does that mean? They basically send it back to a lower court to look at some other issue. If they want to stall this out, they could stall it out. So if this is a candle, the wick is getting lit or is lit, and it is on a slow burn. The defense, or I should say the prosecution, is extremely upset by this because they know with that 60-day rule that I mentioned earlier, the fact that the Supreme Court has decided to take this case and take a look at it, they realize the president has won. He's won. It's just that simple. Because if he makes it to election day without a felonious charge or being incarcerated, whatever, if he makes it to election day, becomes the next president of the United States, it's over. It's just that simple. It's over. Theoretically, this is one of these questions they generally ask in law school. Can you do this? Can you do that? Technically, they could have a trial at the same time they're having an election. Technically, they could put him on trial the day after the election, and assuming he wins, they could technically try him. Maybe. Again, it's another one of these questions that a professor would likely ask a class to simply have an intellectual exchange of ideas. But in practical terms, it's over, because you can't have the judicial system interfering with the executive branch, which of course is the president of the United States. We have 3 separate co-equal branches of government in the United States. And I am very certain that in that situation, the Supreme Court, if they had to, would intervene yet again and state what I just said, that basically this is messing with one branch. Now, the liberals are up in arms because they realize that if they don't stop Trump now, if they don't put a stop to him, they can't beat him at the ballot box. That's what they're thinking. They know how weak Joe Biden is, how weak his record is. They realize the next person in line is Kamala Harris. Ooh, this gives me the chills to even think about that. Can you imagine her as president of the United States with that cackle coming out of her mouth all the time? Oh my goodness. Oh, that's let's just pray. Seriously, pray for the good health of Joe Biden. I mean that sincerely. I pray for his good health because the alternative is unthinkable. I truly hope he makes it through the rest of his term healthy and having some kind of presence of mind, because it is so important for each and every one of us. Now, back on Donald Trump. If he becomes the next president, I guess, what is it, 47 he's going to be? If he becomes president again, he can pretty well pardon himself. He's not going to run for re-election, so he doesn't have to have a filter. He doesn't even have to look like he's trying to please anybody. He doesn't have to care about nothing. He's got 4 years, and then it's over with. The party's over, turn off the lights, time to go home. He can pretty well pardon himself on every case except, anybody know the answer to this? Except the Georgia case, because Fannie Willis, Sweet Fannie is what I call her, Sweet Fannie brought him charges under the state RICO Act, RICO, racketeering, internally corrupt organizations. Of course, this was such a racketeering situation. This Fannie Willis just really aggravates me to death. Sweet Fannie. Imagine bringing a law that was designed to go after gangsters and organized crime, serious organized crime, that a prosecutor is supposed to use extreme discretion before she brings it, and then she brings it against a president like this. Just simply an outrage, and I frankly hope they get what is coming to them. All right, back on the story timeline here, that the hearing, as I said, is for tomorrow. That is going to be good. The last hearing that we just went through, wasn't that fantastic? Did y'all see that? I actually have a video that we're going to review pertaining to the highlights of the little mini trial that we just witnessed. We're going to look at text here in just a minute that show definitively Mr. Terrence Bradley, the ex-law partner of Nathan Wade, how he tells Ashley Merchant in a text message one thing, and then he gets on the witness stand and he can't remember, fill in your own word right there, but you know what I'm thinking. He can't remember anything. What a nut. What a way to commit and show for the world, showcase for the world what it looks like to commit perjury. I'm going to tell you, this is beyond perjury. This is nothing more than a scheme to perpetrate a fraud on the court, which is absolutely outrageous. I'm sure y'all probably feel the same way. I can assure you I feel that way. Also, another major, I told you it's been a busy, busy day today. I have been reporting about the fact, according to Breitbart News, that President Joe Biden and his administration have a plant inside Fannie Willis's office. And no, I'm not talking the kind of plant that you water and make sure it has sunlight every day. I'm talking about an inside man. We've talked about this Jeff DeSantis, no relation to Governor DeSantis here in the great state of Florida. This guy, the story keeps developing. Day one, he's a plant. He's basically controlling Fannie Willis, and if not controlling her, he is definitely using manipulation tactics to make sure everything is coordinated at the proper and peak time against former President Donald Trump. What has been announced today, according to these same sources, and not just one source, it's many sources, according to Breitbart News, and that is that he has received from the Biden administration, and we'll go into the specifics of how this was done. It's another one of these by proxy type of situations where the money is given to him through like a third party intermediate. I can't even speak today. It's a third party individual. Let's just go with that. Similar to the way that Nathan Wade was enriching Fannie Willis by proxy. Fannie Willis pays Nathan Wade. Nathan Wade compensates her directly and or indirectly. So that's where we're at right there. So we got those big stories to go over. The other note I made, I just wanted to mention too, it's really hilarious in this Fannie Willis case, how she claims that she has all this cash because she's black. You know, we all know black people keep cash at home, unlike white people or Hispanic people or whatever. Black people, according to Fannie Willis, it's just normal. You keep a ton of cash in your house. You know, it's kind of like you got a cash tree somewhere in the house, and you just go pull cash off anytime you want. The funny thing is, remember, Fannie Willis had a lien on her property, specifically a $4,600 tax lien. So among everything else they want you to believe, she wants you to believe, she wants the court to believe, she's got all this cash, tons of money with no receipts in or out of the bank, nothing from Nathan Wade as far as receipts go. However, she's got all this cash, but she didn't have enough cash. She didn't have enough cash to pay her tax lien of $4,600. Ain't that something, huh? It's just another one of these great mysteries pertaining to this case. Additionally, our former President Donald Trump was at the border today. After he announced that he was going to go to the border, you had our beloved President Joe Biden. He was able to muscle up enough strength and get down to the border and doing everything he possibly could to blame former President Donald Trump directly for the condition of the border. Folks, there are literally millions of people coming across that border every single year. It's hard to believe that many people are coming across the border. These are individuals. We do not understand their record. We don't know who they are. They're basically brought into the country by smugglers or driven to the border, and here you go. They come into the loving arms of our personnel at the border. They simply are fingerprinted, get a picture, they're given money, they're sent to wherever they want to go, courtesy of Uncle Sam. You know, it's like Uncle Sam Airlines. And depending on where they go, like the city of New York City, they're giving them cash. They give them little cards, and I'm guessing it's already preloaded, and you just go ahead and buy whatever you need. And I understand compassion. I understand being kind to people, but we all know if you don't have a border, you don't have a country. I will tell you, there are some good things about immigration. It's hard to think in that terms, but there are good things about it. One of the good things about immigration is our country is one of the very few countries on the face of the earth that is not suffering with a population issue right now. Countries like Russia, Japan, especially China, with that faulty, ill thought out, ill fated policy of one child per family, they are in serious dire straits because of their population decrease. And in the United States, we obviously do not have that problem because of all the immigrants that are coming in. It also benefits a lot of our baby boomers and individuals that are getting older. I'm in my mid 50s, for example. And as we get older, we're not going to really have a problem with Social Security, at least not immediately, in large part because there's going to be more people paying into Social Security than are drawing out. Had it not been for immigration, that would not have been the case. Quickly, as far as Russia is concerned, and this is probably one of the reasons for the Ukraine war that you never hear talked about, and that is that they are so worried about their population, they may not have enough soldiers, enough men of military age that can actually join the Russian services just to protect their own borders. Can you believe that? If I remember correctly, it takes like 1.2 million Russian soldiers just to defend their borders. You have to understand, Russia is a huge, huge country, as Donald Trump would say. It's huge. It is. It's an enormous country. I'm assuming it's the largest country on the face of the world. It has to be. It is enormous, and it takes a lot of people to secure the border. In Russia, they secure their borders. In the United States, we do not do that. Back on the population situation, China is in the same situation that Russia's in as far as the population growth. They're going to have a problem just maintaining their own borders because of the population. I believe it's supposed to drop from 3-4 billion people to 335 million. It's going to be smaller by population than the United States by the year 2050. That's the statistics I read. Think about that. That's rather sobering, isn't it? That's another reason they're concerned about Taiwan. It's kind of like now or never, because if they don't do something soon, they can't send a bunch of grandparents over there. I mean, really, to fight their war. So there is a lot of strain that is being put on these countries, which might actually be good on some of these bad actor countries, so to speak. But it's a major problem. In the United States, again, that's one of them weird things about immigration that kind of works in our favor. It's kind of like asking Google, what are the benefits of being fat? None of us really want to be fat. We'd rather be fit, in shape, or whatever. However, there are positive attributes about having a little extra weight or even being fat potentially. For example, as you get older, if you have a little extra weight, it could help in case you get sick, this type of thing. So I like to always think outside the box. That's one of the things I mean when I keep talking about the free your mind. You do need to free your mind. You need to always be thinking about any subject. Like, what is something positive or negative about such and such that I have not considered, that I have not thought of? And oftentimes you'll discover things like I just described. So very complicated situation, but we do have to secure our border. It's very unsettling. You have all these individuals, especially single men of military age from China, from all kinds of places around the world, and they're not necessarily friendly countries. And when you speak out and you say something about that, what do the liberals, what do the Democrats say? They start calling you what they always do, a racist, a bigot. You are xenophobe, and all these other fancy words they try to throw around to impress everybody. And I'm telling you, I've had enough of that. That's a bunch of muck. The bottom line is it has to be stopped. Donald Trump had it stopped. When you hear Joe Biden say, oh, hey, guess what, guys? It was Donald Trump. He picked up the phone and told everybody to kill the bill because I need more people to help me secure the border. I need funding. I need help. And Donald Trump, he's the bad guy. He's the guy that took it away from all of us to have a secure border. I think most of us, I hope most of us are smart enough to know that is a bunch of muck. I mean, it is just complete and utter nonsense. If you recall, when President Donald Trump left office, our border was secure. The amount of people coming across the border illegally was at a trickle. Remember, they had the remain in Mexico policy. You could come, they would get your information, fill out the form, whatever, but you waited in Mexico until your hearing, until your case had a final disposition. And that had a chilling effect on the illegal immigration coming across the border. So in other words, there is no new funding that's needed. That's a lie. That's a bald-faced lie. We do not need another law for Joe Biden to break. He will not enforce the laws we have now. Why would anybody think he's going to enforce any other law that we decide to pass. I mean, does he really think we're that stupid? I sure hope not. All right. Well, anyway, we have an idea what the general things we're going to take a look at. I got a couple news stories. Let's take a quick peek at this here on the layout. Okay. So we got Mr. Donald Trump right here visiting the border. Breitbart. I love Breitbart. Now they, of course, are breaking that story. Oh, it says here $131,000 was paid to this quote unquote plant, and we'll dig into the weeds on this. We will look at a few of the text messages. I'm working on getting a full, complete, legible copy of all of the text messages, and I expect I will have that sooner than later. I have the vast majority of them. I just need to get them more organized and put together, and when I do so, I'll be happy to put a link, and you are welcome to dive through that material if you're so inclined. Maybe you're like me and you're just absolutely nuts about this type of stuff, and you might want to take a gather at it, and I'd be happy to have you, or maybe rather a gander. You can take a gander at it and take a look and see what you like or what you don't like. So we'll drill down in that. And of course, the big news of the day, SCO SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States, has ruled in the favor of Donald Trump at this point. And of course, you've got the liberals like Keith Olbermann that is going space liftoff big time. And Fox News even calls it a huge win. I'll go over the rest of this here in a minute. I have to show you this one picture. You see this picture right here of Ashley Merchant? This is just one of the better pictures I've seen of her. She is such a beautiful woman, and she is so intelligent. She's a fierce and staunch advocate for her client, like an attorney should be. She thought outside of the box. I need to send her a Free Mind t-shirt. She is that type of individual, thought outside the box, started drilling around on the computer, discovered he had a divorce that he just filed the day after he inked a contract worth up to $1 million that was never approved by the Fulton County Tax Authority. I mean, I love this woman. I can't say it any clearer. What a fantastic attorney and a zealous advocate for her client. So we have an outline of what we're going to drill down into. If you have any questions, put them in the comments, please, as I've discussed. Let's take a quick peek at what we got going on here and who is joining us in our chat. So we're going to, let me click a little bit here and there. Okay, we're going to do this real quickly. Kim, as always, I appreciate you joining me. Zach, thank you. Charles, good to see you again, my friend from Tennessee. I believe that tomorrow, if they're consistent with their usual protocol, they generally start about 9 o'clock to 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Lord willing, I'll be back with you at that time, and we can start drilling down on this case, because I think these type of arguments, they're pretty well allowed to say whatever they want to say. It's not necessarily evidence. So the rules on a closing statement is what we call argumentative, and it's just that. You can argue it and twist the evidence that came out in court and present it to the judge in a way you think best shows your position. So that's what they're going to do tomorrow. Zach, thanks for joining our family tonight. Let's see, sleeping on a mattress full of, yeah, I'm sure that's what she's doing. Hey, I think it's a good idea to have some cash in your house. I mean, it's a good idea just to be prepared. You don't have some extra cash in case of an emergency. I wouldn't be keeping hordes amount of cash in your home. However, I'm sure most people probably carry a little stash in their house. Nowadays, they have safes that you can get. You can put a safe in your wall. You can drill one out in your floor, pull the carpet back. I mean, there's a million ways to disguise stuff. If you ever want to do something fun on YouTube other than watch J.R. Dukes, you can go ahead and just look down, type in something like hidden safes or hidden home safes. It's amazing what people do. I don't have to tell you guys this, but the humans as a species, we are God has blessed us all as a very creative group of people. When we put our minds to stuff, we can really come up with some cool stuff. So it's pretty good. Yes, God bless President Donald Trump. Absolutely. And Zach, thanks for joining us from New York City. I don't know how it is living with all them liberal people there, but I will tell you, one of my sons used to live in New York City, and to my surprise, I love New York City. I really did. The people, you hear the people are rude. I mean, that just wasn't my experience. People were nice. I enjoyed being there. It was, I mean, them buildings are huge. I'm a city boy myself, but I think there's a city and then there's New York City. That place is just enormous, beautiful, but it is an amazing city. It reminds me in some ways, in some parts, almost like a foreign country. You know, you have this section here and that section there, and it's just everybody pretty well harmonizes together. It's just really an amazing city, but maybe not as much anymore with the politics going on because they may have to pay a price for this nonsense, this retribution, this political attack they did against former President Donald Trump with this $450 ridiculous verdict. I mean, what an outrage. Even the governor herself has confirmed, New York City governor, that, oh, no one needs to worry. This was a one-off thing pertaining to Donald. I mean, that's an admission that, hey, we purposely ran this guy over because we wanted to. This was nothing to do with justice. This had to do with retribution. This is the type of stuff they literally do in Russia and they do in banana republics. That's exactly what happened, folks. Don't let anybody lie to you or fill your heads with somehow that he deserved this. The practices that he was fined for was and are practices that everybody uses today. You should look at the Twitter feed, or maybe it was on True Social, from Grant, what is his name? Grant Cardone. There are articles by CNN. You can do a quick Google search, and I'll even go as far to tell you some of the articles I read from the state of Florida here. A lot of people are very concerned because the practices he employed in valuing his property with the proper disclosure forms on the top that this is his subjective opinion. Because, folks, let's be honest about it. You can sell your property for what you can sell your property for. I meant whatever someone will pay you for it is what you can sell it for, right? That pretty well makes sense. If you have cash in hand, you can buy whatever property you want for whatever amount of money you arrive at with the person selling the property. This is the way it has always been done. This is the way it's done today, and it will be the way it is done in the future. What happened with Mr. Donald Trump in New York City is retribution. It's election interference. How much can we keep this man tied up in court? What kind of pain can we cause this guy? How much time can we keep him off of the campaign trail? Because we cannot beat Donald Trump directly. We can't beat him at the ballot box. So we have to do everything in our power to put an impediment to him becoming the next president. And folks, make no mistake about this, especially in New York City, in New York State. This is not about Donald Trump becoming the next president of the United States. This is about you and me and our right to elect who we want to be the next president of the United States. So don't ever lose that focus. As a matter of fact, there is a judge in the great state of Illinois that today barred Donald Trump from the Illinois ballot. Now, this was really stupid, and there was no reason for it because, as you know, we are waiting on an opinion, on a ruling rather, from the U.S. Supreme Court directly on this subject. Remember the case from Colorado and Maine, but specifically the Colorado case was appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. They heard oral arguments on this case, and we're simply waiting to hear the results of the case. So I'm not sure how much longer they're going to take, but that is another reason, just so we're clear here, that's another reason why I am in the camp that believes, because you hear a lot of people say, oh, this is the Supreme Court. They're going to move as fast as they can. They don't want him to get away with this, whatever that means. But I'm here to tell you, from what I understand from the U.S. Supreme Court and the fact that they took 16 days or so to decide that they're going to go ahead and hear this case. This is not an organization that's looking to move fast. This is an organization that has decided they are going to slow walk this case. Really, to be perfectly blunt about it, they're handling this case like any other case is normally handled before the U.S. Supreme Court. Again, when it comes to President Donald Trump, they want to get Trump, as Alan Dershowitz would say, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. So it's just not fair again that Donald Trump does not get the same due process rights that you or me would receive. So that's just the way it goes, folks. That's the way it bounces. So, all right, let's run through this real quick. All right, so tomorrow 9:30, Charles looks like where it's gonna hit to. And yeah, we definitely want that mattress. We're glad Donald Trump's doing good. I appreciate everybody joining me today. No doubt about that. A&J Smooth 49. I love that handle. Thank you for joining me today. A&J location. Let him know where you're at, A&J. I probably should remember. Oh, you're in STL. Was that Salt Lake City? Is that what that means? Or Seattle? Maybe Seattle. I think that's Seattle. All right. I'm glad everybody's chit-chatting and becoming best of friends. That's what we all want to do. I wonder if Trump legal team knows about the plant in the DA. You know, I can only assume that they know about it and they are working on it, so to speak. The odd thing here is, other than Breitbart, I've heard from Lou Dobbs. Remember, we looked at his evaluation yesterday, and I believe Megyn Kelly, she does a good job staying on top of this stuff too. I've heard them make some comments in passing or just some small stories about it. If this is true, this is going to be so huge on this inside plant, because this is prima facie proof, not speculation, proof of election interference. Imagine that. If this guy's a plant from the White House, directly, indirectly, whatever, if he's AKA the plant, this is terrible bad news for the Biden administration. Can't really worm around this. This is terrible for them, because this is proof of a current administration working, collaborating with others to bring down the leading candidate for president of the United States. What an outrage. Absolute outrage. And yeah, when you don't when you're playing around with money, you got to be really careful about that, folks. You know, I've said many times, I love our country. I bleed red, white, and blue. Make no mistake about it. But we are not perfect, and we have changes that we have to go through and undertake as a society to maintain our position as that great society. And one of the issues is these statutes. We just have too many of them. And Charles is exactly right. When you are dealing, especially in cash, and it's kind of like, you know, you're playing hide the bone or whatever, this is not a good thing when it comes to the feds looking at you, because if they decide that you are money laundering, you can have yourself, again, some very serious potential criminal liability. Now you're thinking, money laundering, exactly what is that? Well, it can be a lot of different things, but in simple terms, money laundering would be not, it's dealing with money, but the origin is not clear. Even the destination may not be clear. It's a very broad law. It's a very broad definition. Make no mistake about it. When the feds want you, when they want to put you away, and when they want to go after you, and they want to make you feel the pain, as I would say, they always hit you with two or three things. Money laundering is one of them. Racketeering, this RICO stuff, can be would be another top one. But the two tops is essentially what we call mail fraud, mail and or wire fraud. They're essentially the same thing now. If you notice, some of the individuals that you hear convicted just in the news on various crimes, it's generally pertaining to wire fraud. That's what they call it. We think of wire as the telephone, you know, the old timey telephones. You pick it up and you got someone on the wire, someone on the line. That's what they're inferring there. But almost, I would say, everything can potentially be made into a federal case. To be a federal case, you have to have essentially a federal interest in the case. But these lawyers working for the feds are pretty smart. They can find a way to weave it into a federal case. And one of the easiest ways to do that is wire fraud, because everything, in a sense, as far as interstate, even intrastate, meaning within the state, is sent over wires that belong to the Fed. So if they want to get involved with the crime and make it a federal case, literally they can. Just like guns. Gun laws are, well, I don't want to say they're always federal, but it's an easy win. If there's something related to a firearm, during the commission of a crime, the feds can reach into that anytime they choose. Make no mistake about it, the feds are powerful. You don't want to cross the feds. I can assure you that. AJ Smooth, always good to have your comments here. Thank you so much. Zach, again, thank you. So you can't find a time. Yeah, they have a bad habit of doing that in a lot of these cases, Zach. They don't necessarily always publish a time. When the judge was speaking from the bench, I did not see a time. Unfortunately, what I normally just do is I get on the computer and just like you guys, I just start clicking away. I got certain sites that I may check out. I know different, I kind of know where to look. You can set Google alerts for this type of thing. I mean, there's a million tools that you can use, but yeah, sometimes they don't make it easy, my friend Zach. Thank you so much. See, Vegas giving them everything they're supposed to be. Yep, exactly. All right, let's see. All right, I think we pretty well got through everybody. Hello to always wanting more silver. I need to start a handle, always wanting more gold. Or maybe that was taken. I don't know. But I love it. Always. Thanks for joining me today, and thanks for joining our family here today. Michael, it's good to have you in. Yeah, Wilkes-Barre, PA here. Yeah, that's fine. I hope I'm saying that right. Let's see. I was covering a story involving, I think it's pronounced Wilkes-Barre, something like that. It's two different names. Oh, I know why I'm always thinking of that name. They are normally featured on what's that new cops program, Live PD? If I remember right, there is a cameraman, or they're set up as part of that crew of the various police agencies. So it's interesting. Looks like a nice place to live. So I like it. And Gloria, it's always good to see you again. I always, it's kind of funny. The more I do this, the more I remember people's names. You kind of just develop like this family online. It's really cool. I like it. Gloria, thanks for being here. Thank y'all so much. All right. I think I've got most everybody. All right. Gloria, thanks again. See, I think the Illinois judge just wants her name out there. Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's a lot of what is going on. As human beings, you know what we all want. And if you read, I love that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Was that Dale Carnegie, I think is his name. This is really a great book. When I heard some other people talk about reading it, it's one of the best-selling books of all time. And it was written 100 years ago. Something to that effect. I know it had to be written just at or just over 100 years ago, because it uses examples pertaining to gangsters like Al Capone, that lived at that time frame. It'd be the same thing if we wrote a book today, similar to that book, and we were citing Donald Trump visiting the border today. I mean, 100 years from now, we might not be talking as much about. I hope we're not talking about. Well, first of all, I know none of us will be talking about it, but I will tell you that whoever is coming after us, that it would be a very, very similar thing. But in that book, the point I want to make about that is one of the things that we all want as human beings. If there's like one thing universal, we all want to feel important, valued, treasured, loved. It's just a fundamental, universal, human nature type of question. And unfortunately, some people can make it a sick obsession or a sick piece of the human nature puzzle. They want to be famous. They want to get their names in the history books for all of eternity, so to speak. That, in my opinion, is a lot of times what motivates people. They figure they'll be famous, and who can argue about that? They are going to be listed in the history books as an individual that took a soon-to-be president or whatever off of the ballot. Fannie Willis, Nathan Wade. Again, I think if you want to use a fancy word for all this, Gloria, we would call it hubris. I could think of a few other words, but they wouldn't be suitable for YouTube, so we'll move on. St. Louis in the house. And, of course, that's right, Gloria. Let's see. Zach, California. I believe Gloria is in California, so I'm the only member of family that votes for me. In California, I bet you are. My trips to California, again, another surprising place. I just thought, I don't know what I thought. I just thought it was going to be something extremely wild. And depending on where you go, it is. But I will tell you, like in most states, the rural area, the county, the country, very conservative like any other state. It's almost like driving through the deep South when you drive in the country, so to speak, in the state of California. Beautiful, beautiful place. The biggest memory I can share with y'all real quickly, when I first went to California to visit, it had to be, I'm thinking out loud here, but it was probably like 2005. And what stood out in my mind was I was there at the, what is it, Santa Monica Pier, and I'm sitting there having a hot dog chit chat, and this guy at the table, like directly in front of me, pulls out this big bag of marijuana. I just never seen that before in my life in a public setting like that. So, it's one of the things that I'll never forget. So, well, I just shared my little tidbit with everybody. Okay, see, Nader, Obama, let's say Obama and Biden, as well as the Dems, are using third world toilet tactics to win elections and corrupt the government agency. Yeah, it's really hard to find anything good to say about them. I don't know if y'all had a chance to watch some of The View. I generally don't watch it, but I will watch bits and pieces of it in case I need to cover it. They were flipping out today too. Maybe I'll make a video about that tomorrow, the next day. They were not happy campers, and it is hilarious to hear people say kind of what I say during our conversations. For example, I think it was Joyce. She was like, "Oh, I just don't understand what these people see. How can you see these facts and not feel the same way they feel?" And the irony here is, of course, I and probably you feel exactly the same way. What are these people thinking? This is not going to help our country. It's not going to help our people. It's not going to help us as Americans. No way. Just absolutely insane. So, all right. So we got Allentown. There we go. Allentown, is that Virginia? I just, sorry about that. They're always making sober. I think that is Virginia. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. All right. Thank you all so much again. Okay, let's start diving into what the meat of some of this is today. So let me get my stuff set up as we're talking along. Remember, I will keep checking for comments or questions. So if you have any questions or just want to give a shout out or whatever, go ahead and I'll try to catch them as they come through my feed here. Okay, here we go. We're going to go ahead and, one other thing I want to tell you. If y'all want to join the program today, I've had one person try so far. Let me copy this link. If you'd like to visit, all you got to do is click this link I just put in the chat. And the way this works, let's make sure the chat goes through here. The way this works, it's right there. The way the chat works is you click on that link. You don't have to put any software on your phone or your computer. You just need to have some kind of mic to talk into. It doesn't have to be like this fancy deal right here. Just some kind of mic. Generally, your phone's mic is fine, or if you have a headset, you need to be on a Chrome browser. You do need Chrome, otherwise it's not going to work correctly. But just your normal Chrome/Google browser. Of course, Chrome is like a type of browser offered by Google. So make sure it's Chrome. And then finally, you just need to have a mic to talk into and something to hear me on. And as I see you pop up, if I see your picture on there, you're good to go and we can chat for a little bit. So that would work out really good. Hey, American Nana, it's always good to see you. Thank you again for joining us. Love to see clips. Yeah, I've done that before on The View. Take some of their clips and respond to it because some of their comments are just absolutely hilarious. Sometimes I actually wonder if they believe that stuff or it's more for TV watching. I'm not sure. That's right, American Nana, West Virginia. I wasn't sure exactly where you were from, so I appreciate that. I'd like to know where everybody's from. Okay, back on it. We're going to get into this video right now. All righty, let's see here. We're going to share the screen. All right, so this here is our president, Donald Trump, and he is arriving at the border today. Remember, he's in one area and Joe Biden is at the other. So without further ado, let's see what comments he makes. Of course, he's loved by the border agents because he wants them to be able to do their job and seal our border. They don't really hide that fact.
Nice weather, beautiful day, but a very dangerous border. We're going to take care of it. Thank you.
Mr. President, do you have any legislation ideas for it?
may not be able to hear him because it's got the airplane and stuff going on, but you can see how he interacts with everybody. He's definitely loved. You got people cheering, of course, and why not, right? He's extremely popular, and everywhere he goes draws a huge crowd. I don't know if you have had the opportunity to, I don't know if you have the opportunity to ever go to a Trump rally, but if you have not been to a Donald Trump rally, you need to do that one time in your life. I'm telling you, it is, in my opinion, is pretty wild. He is a very charismatic individual. People love to hear him speak. The rally that I went to here in Tampa, I think that was well, it was years ago. I mean, it was back when he was running for his first term. What was that, 2016? He really has one heck of a rally. So if you haven't experienced it, I strongly suggest that you take time and do just that. All right. So moving on. Of course, that's just the president right there. Let's see what we got going on right here. I want to kind of keep this in the same order that I am. Okay, let's talk about the good news of the day, which, of course, is President Donald Trump's win with the Supreme Court. It doesn't get much better. Anytime you can have a win at the U.S. Supreme Court, that's a good day. So let's take a peek at this, and then we'll talk about it.
Bring in Lexi Rigdon, who is a criminal defense attorney. And Lexi, this decision by the court is critical on both the substance and the timing. Let us start with the timing. Walk us through the chronology, what this is going to look like now that the Supreme Court has basically delayed this. And could this potentially delay it past the election as you see it?
This is a huge win for Team Trump, and it can't be overstated. So the Supreme Court is not hearing this until the end of April, which means a decision will not come from the Supreme Court until May or June. And June is when the court year usually closes. So let's assume it's June. At that point, the trial doesn't start the next day. It's not a shotgun start. I mean, they're going to have to file pretrial motions. They're going to have to marshal their witnesses and their evidence. They're going to have to pick a jury, which could take months to pick a jury in a case like that, assuming that the Supreme Court holds that there is no presidential criminal immunity claim for Trump. And so then the trial is already, the state's already said it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks. And so at that point, you are literally smack dab in the middle of election season, in the middle of conventions, where you have this hypothetical situation where the Republican nominee, I mean, I think we all know that absent something crazy happens, he's probably going to be the Republican nominee, is being tried by the opposing party's Department of Justice. I mean, it is a horrible, horrible look for the.
She's exactly correct. I'm going to talk a little softer just in case you jacked up your volume. I know sometimes these videos don't always come across with the same volume that I use, so I'll talk a little monotone for just a second. But the takeaway here that you need to be aware of is what we just talked about a few minutes ago. This decision today, the value for President Donald Trump is, I would say, number one, it's delayed. And number two, they obviously have enough votes already to at least take a look at this claim. They cannot be happy seeing what you and I see every single day. They are not stupid individuals. They know what's going on. They realize this is what it is, which is a persecution of the president. And they have to be asking themselves serious questions in their mind. Are we going to allow this to continue in perpetuity? Is it going to be the case that whatever party comes into power, if they do not like the guy or girl that left, are we going to allow this type of nonsense? Clearly, there's a case to be made that the Constitution itself bars a lot of this. Even in New York, to switch back to the Letitia James fiasco, there is something called the Eighth Amendment, and the Eighth Amendment prohibits fines and imprisonments. That is what is called unusually high. It's something that's not normal. It's excessive, and the Constitution itself protects individuals, and the Constitution itself protects presidents, and that's going to be what the Supreme Court's going to have to figure. To what extent does it do that?
Department of Justice, if it gets that far. And so there is a potential, of course, that, trials are not linear, as we're seeing now. Trial schedules are not linear. There is a potential that this goes past the general election. And then if Trump wins, then there might not be a prosecution at all.
Okay, so if the Supreme Court rules against former President Trump and decides that he can be tried for his actions on January 6th, then what? Can you play out the scenarios here, best and worst case for the former president?
Right. If they do decide, basically, if the Supreme Court takes this up, which it's going to, and says, you know what, we agree with the two lower courts who ruled on this, there is no blanket presidential criminal immunity, then Trump is in no different a position than he is now. Then basically this all just gets put back on the trial calendar, and then you could potentially see a trial right in the middle of election season. Now, if Biden wins, then, the general election, then that trial will proceed if there is no presidential immunity. But like I said, if Biden loses and Trump is the president, the DOJ is not going to prosecute a sitting president. And also, it'll then be Trump's DOJ. And we don't know what happens to the prosecution at that case. It might just completely fall apart.
Okay, so if you want more courtroom drama, then you are in luck, because yesterday, Illinois became the third state to declare Trump ineligible to run for president. But this decision might not stand very long, because the Supreme Court is also hearing the Colorado case. So tell us what you expect to take place there moving forward.
Well, it's pretty unbelievable that this almost seems like a little bit of a political stunt on the part of the Illinois Supreme Court, because we already have this issue pending before the Supreme Court, and the justices, even the liberal ones, were very skeptical of the Colorado Supreme Court's ability to just unilaterally remove somebody from the ballot in a self-executing way. So I don't think that, I'm not sure why Illinois decided to do this. But I don't think ultimately that they're going to be able to keep him off of the ballot, given the legal framework that's being argued of the Constitution.
Yeah, politics rules the day.
I want to make sure, too, that I express exactly what I think is going to happen in this particular situation. Specific case I'm talking about is before the U.S. Supreme Court on the issue of immunity, presidential immunity. How do I think the Supreme Court is going to come down on this? Now, remember, we've talked about this, that in the past, there is no precedent on this type of situation. And it makes it all the more likely the Supreme Court would hear a case like this. And of course, they have decided to go ahead and hear this particular case, despite the fact that all the pundits, the legacy media said, oh, it will never happen. They will never take this case, blah. Well, obviously, that did not come true. So what I think is going to happen at the end of the day, I do believe the Supreme Court is going to stretch this out as long as they can. So I think that's fantastic. In other words, they're going to hear the case, and then they're going to take their time deciding the case. I cannot see the U.S. Supreme Court allowing this nonsense to go forward that is happening today. I just don't see it happening. They must take some type of action. They must do something. Now, I'm not going to say they're going to issue a blanket that thou shalt not be reachable. I will tell you that I believe the Supreme Court will say something like this. Look, any act that a president takes and he reasonably believes that he's acting in the best interest of the country, and it's, they'll use words like it's in conjunction with his job, it's a usual part of his duties. They're going to have to come up with some kind of language that says he is immune. Absolutely, they have to. The closest thing to this is the Supreme Court has ruled in the past in a Richard Nixon related case that in a civil context, the president is immune. So it's not like there's no basis for this. The founding fathers clearly did not want the president to be held accountable the way he is being. And when I say held accountable, that's kind of really not the correct word. There's nothing to be held accountable for. It's part of his job to ensure a smooth transfer of power, to investigate anything he thinks may be wrong as far as the way the election was handled or any type of fraud or anything. I mean, it is part of his duties. They have to do something along them lines. They can't say, no, never mind, he doesn't have blanket immunity. It may be the case that if a president is brought up on something, a former president, maybe the Supreme Court's going to have to look at the cases individually. Is this part of his duties? They may have like a 3-part test. If it meets 1, 2, and 3, it's part of his job. He cannot be prosecuted, persecuted. Put your own word in there. It just simply cannot be allowed to stand. And if it is really going to work to undermine our great society. And that is something we all should really slow down and take a deep look at it. So at any rate, that's just my opinion on it. We'll see exactly how this transpired. Now, let's go ahead and get into, you want to see someone lose their, you know what? Well, you're about to see it. So let's get right into this. This is, I think his name Keith Overman, or he's one of these wackos on MSNBC. People have been having a good laugh because on his podcast, he was really strung out. He was extremely upset at the Supreme Court for doing what they're supposed to do, which is what we've been talking about all day. So at any rate, let's go right into this and let's take a quick peek at this, and then we'll discuss this.
You know the saying, it's time to put away childish things. 25 minutes into the hour, it might be time to put away the legalistic things, which is part of our job, and we've reported it out. And I explained what the cert is, and I read it, and we talked about the calendar. But we invited you on tonight as someone who knows the law, but is not necessarily limited by some of the, shall we say, BS. And so I was curious what you think the Supreme Court is actually doing, not what it's saying it's doing, not what might feature elegant prose at the end of the day in the ruling, but what do you think it's actually doing?
They're trying to make Trump win. The whole point of this ruling is for Trump to win. Ari, remember how, let's say, all of 2022, I came on your...
Remember, this is the way Democrats, this is the way these liberals are. If they don't get their way, if they don't win at every step, then you're evil. You got to be removed. Your intentions are not good. And this is exactly what this clown is saying. Basically, the Supreme Court is trying to allow Donald Trump to win. And that is simply a crock.
Program, and I screamed and I tore my hair out over how Merrick Garland was moving too slowly to hold Trump accountable before the next election. This is why, because you have to understand what the Supreme Court is really about. I know you like to give your viewers context, so had this on for some context about what the Supreme Court is really up to. Trump was kicked off of the Colorado ballot, all right? And around December 20th last year, the Supreme Court spooled up that case and heard that hearing within 45 days on February 8th, all right? Trump was appealed his immunity, Judge Chutkan's immunity ruling, also in the middle of December. Andrew Weissman just pointed out, Jack Smith asked the Supreme Court to hear the case on December 14th. By the time we get to April 22nd, it will be 130 days since they were asked to hear the appeal. So it's 45 days when a ruling could hurt Trump, but 130 days when the delay can help Trump.
Boy, he's a little heated, ain't he? He's about to go thermonuclear, I would say. That's just too bad. These liberals, folks, they love it when they use the system against you or against me. They love it when they get their way. And anytime you question them, anytime you don't do exactly what they think you should do, if you have a difference of opinion, this is the kind of treatment you get.
That is the essence of this Supreme Court. And every single Democrat who is not on board for expanding the Supreme Court and reducing the power of these Republican theocrats in robes is in some way complicit in today's failure.
Theocrats in robes. Now let's unpack that. And what are they talking about there? Well, they're just swiping and slamming the court. And when he talks about adding people, that's going back to what they refer to as packing the court. It's been tried a few times in history. I think Theodore Roosevelt tried it, and it was soundly defeated. Generally, presidents always talk about packing the court because the U.S. Constitution, unfortunately, does not set the amount of judges, or I should say justices, on the Supreme Court. It has just always been our tradition, if you will, that we have 9. And why is 9 a good number? Well, I don't know, but I do know it's a good number because it's an odd number. You obviously don't want to have 8 or 10 because you are more likely to have a split verdict. If they were to allow court packing, that would not be a good thing. Why would that not be a good thing? Well, basically what you're going to have is you're going to have a Supreme Court with hundreds of judges on it for any particular case, because every time a president does not like the way a particular ruling came, pertaining to whatever subject, he's going to go ahead and add 3 or 4 more justices that are basically thinking the way he wants them to think. And obviously that's a non-starter. It's been tried. Biden tried to do it before. Like I said, I believe it was Roosevelt tried to basically do the same thing, what they call packing the court. It was not effective, and it never, well, it wasn't that it wasn't effective. It just never passed. They tried like hell, but it just wasn't, it didn't work out.
Excellent numerical, factual context. Michael, your thoughts?
I want to pick up on something that both Neil and Andrew pointed out, and it really goes to the heart of what my friend Ellie just laid out, and that is Donald Trump has basically said, as president, you can't come after me. Now that I'm done with my presidency, you can't come after me. And the court is now in the position to say, yeah, let's sort of stretch this out a little bit longer. And the reason why the timeline is very problematic is the court knows that election voting begins immediately after Labor Day. In some states, as early as the last 2 weeks of August. So the idea that you're going to delay even addressing this issue possibly to the end of the term, June, tells you there is no way in hell you're going to get this case before the process of being adjudicated before then, before this.
Just a quick programming note. Anytime you hear liberals, Democrats, where they start cussing even lightly with the H word, you know that they're losing.
Election is over. And so the idea then falls back on the lower court judge, all right, in this case, Judge Chutkan, to basically chuck it until after the election, because there's no way she's going to be in a position to have Donald Trump hauled into court to sit during trial in the middle of a presidential campaign in September, October.
And so let me take that alley-oop logically to Ellie, which is these are smart lawyers who've become judges who understand all this. And we are not talking about some random, debatable offense that occurred while someone was in office. That does happen, right? We are talking about whether there will be any adjudication of an effort to overthrow the election results before that person comes back into power, Ellie.
Yeah, and they don't want that adjudication to happen. Remember, we haven't talked about this, but remember, even while granting the case, even while granting cert, the Supreme Court didn't have to grant the stay. They could have allowed Chutkan to continue with her trial preparation and her trial calendar while they were deliberating the issue, right? They didn't have to grant the stay. That was a choice. Just like it was a choice to wait 130 days, just like it's a choice when they finally hear the case for how long it's going to take them to release their opinion. All of these choices, as you say, are to help Trump explicitly, because cui bono, as Cicero would say, cui bono, who benefits? Who benefits from this?
Oh my goodness, this guy just drives me crazy. I almost want to poke my eardrums out, but we have to expose it. We have to see what a liberal looks like in their natural setting. And if you don't watch MSNBC, I don't blame you. It's painful for me to watch, but you have to see what these people think. These people are goons. These people are grifters. They are losers. They are chokers. They have a flawed mental thinking, but this is the way they see the world. And you better understand how they think, because these type of individuals, if you don't see the world the same way they see the world, then they're going to do potentially you what they have been doing to Donald Trump.
This delay. Americans, American democracy, the knowing who is allowed to run and who we can vote for. No. The only person who benefits from the Supreme Court's slow walking of this case is Donald Trump himself personally, because it gives him a chance to win re-election before accountability comes reckoning upon his head.
Yeah, and what he's not telling you is Donald Trump is getting the same type of treatment at this point with the U.S. Supreme Court that any other defendant in his position would have. In other words, think of it this way. The state does not, hear me clearly, the state, meaning the government, does not have a right to a speedy trial. The defendant has a right to a speedy trial, or at least a trial within a reasonable amount of time if they choose. But it's up to the individual defendant. The state has no interest, or I should say no right, in a speedy trial. It's made up. It's a fiction. This guy is trying to give you the opinion straight out, and it's a bold-faced lie that somehow the Supreme Court, by simply saying we'll hear this case, is somehow doing something wrong or engaging in malfeasance. And that is a crack. That is a lie. And I try not to use words so strong, but in this case, it's a lie. There's no other way to say it. He is wrong on the facts. He wants Donald Trump treated like everybody else, except when he is treated like everybody else, and it does not support the narrative they're trying to stick down our throats.
And that is what the Supreme Court is complicit in doing. And I think they might as well call themselves on his defense team. It's not like they're going to get paid anyway. They might as well just put themselves on his defense team's roster.
These people are just absolutely crazy. I mean, wow. What I mean, it almost leaves me speechless. And trust me, that is something to mark on your calendar, because I always got something to say. Y'all know how I am about that. So, all right, moving on. We see exactly how Donald Trump is being treated. One thing I did want to point out, he was talking about Judge Chutkan, which is I believe she's the D.C. Court of Appeals judge that is hearing this case involving Donald Trump. Well, she's not exactly in love with Donald Trump. These people complain when they don't get their way, but they don't complain when something's unfair against Donald Trump. And what I want to submit for your consideration is what I call Exhibit A, and that is when some of the arguments going on in this case, attorneys, I should say the prosecution, they like to do what's called the dump. They have to turn over all their records to the other side, to the defense. It's just standard in any type of criminal proceeding. They have to know evidence that tends to convict their client, and they have to have access and be given evidence that tends to show their client is innocent of what he is charged with. I believe they call it like exculpatory evidence versus some other. I don't want to get into that. I just want to keep it simple. Well, they turned over to Donald Trump and his team literally huge gigabytes of documents. Now, this is a game. This is part of the game. What is the game? Well, they'll take something, for example, that favors the president and hide it, maybe somewhere buried deep. Let's just say, for discussion's sake, there is 5,000 disks of information that they turned over. It may be buried in a file on disk number 553, and it all has to be printed out, reviewed, and they have to figure out if it helps, hurts their client. It's just a game. They should change the rules and make it where the prosecution has to highlight, has to show exactly what evidence tends to support innocence of a particular. I mean, we're dealing with human beings. We're dealing with their lives. We're dealing with them being put in a cage, and to play games and hide evidence that tends to show their client is innocent is outrageous to me. It's not fair. But back in Donald Trump's situation, imagine this is what happened. There before this Judge Chuck, and you have Donald Trump's defense team, you have the other side. Well, literally, there were hundreds of thousands of pages. If you do the math on that, the judge, for example, wanted to go to trial right away. Remember, the trial was set for March 6th until the Supreme Court has made this ruling today. Well, the time between the day they received this information and the day of trial, the attorney would have to read something like 30, 50, 60,000 pages a day. And of course, the judge is, well, this is what the judge said. The judge says you can just cursory go through it. You don't have to literally read everything. What the hell is she talking about? That's insane. But that's what this judge said. You don't have to dig through and go over every word and every piece. Folks, I swear that's what the judge said. Isn't that crazy? If I would have been Donald Trump's attorney, I would have simply told the judge, I'm going to have to resign. I can't represent a client you won't let me represent. The attorney has an ethical obligation as an officer of the court to tell the judge exactly what I just told you. You can't expect an attorney to put on a proper defense when the attorney's not able to have enough time to review the documents. But remember, this is not about justice. This is about getting Donald Trump. So they don't care. They want to try him and convict him before the election. That's the game. Please remember this at all times, folks. Don't believe anything else you're told, but that, you can Google it. That's exactly what happened. They were simply told you cannot, you don't have to read every page. You can just simply scan through it. And I've had someone ask me, well, how about the other individuals working for the president? Can't they read some of that? It doesn't work like that. The main attorney has to know everything, because they're it's kind of like making a painting. You're making a masterpiece. They have to have all the information so they can make the strokes and turn out this masterpiece. All that information has to be filtered through their brain. Speaking about being filtered through my brain, Kim, you are the best. Thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate this. Thank you for that super chat. Thank you for your great work. Lots of love, and God bless you, Kim. I sincerely mean that. When you guys support me like this, it truly humbles me. It helps with the bills. It helps with the software. I sincerely appreciate it. You guys are the best. Kim, love you. Love all you guys. You guys, many of you have supported me. Roxy, I've showed y'all that super chat from yesterday. It is really humbling and sincerely appreciated. Thank you, Kim. I really appreciate each and every one of you guys. All right, back on this here. I'm so overwhelmed with the $10. I gotta get back on my train of thought, but I do appreciate it. So it's just not fair to President Donald Trump that he is being screwed every time he's before the judge, especially a judge that's appointed by a Democrat, specifically Obama. He's not getting a fair shake. This is the same judge that told him he could not ask the full Court of Appeals for a review, just like any other normal defendant would be entitled to. And if he did, he would risk her moving forward with this March 6th or whatever day the trial was set for. So he had to take a gamble. He's been criticized by these idiots we just showed you as going to the court and, basically doing something that he shouldn't. It was kind of a roll of the dice. He had no choice. He had to take the dice and show up and throw it. And I believe the Supreme Court saw this, recognizes this. I mean, they watch the news just like you, just like me. They know he's getting screwed over. They know it's not fair. So they intentionally waited 16 days. We're very close to when the trial is supposed to start. And boom, they have tried to, I believe they tried to help Donald Trump. Absolutely, because he's been screwed. And that's not fair. So they want to hear the case, and at the same time, they want to slow this down because they want to make sure this man doesn't get railroaded. You wouldn't want to be railroaded. I wouldn't want to be railroaded. And it's really just that simple. So Let me know if you guys agree with me or not. Do you think I'm too dramatic about that? I mean, it's just very upsetting to me. I realize nothing is perfect in life. I realize that, hey, we're only guaranteed to get a shake, get a fair shake out of stuff. But I'm telling you something, Donald Trump's not even getting the fair shake that he's entitled to, at least in front of these Democratic judges with these Democratic prosecutors and a Democratic Joe Biden weaponizing our government, engaging in what we call lawfare to target our president. And listen, if you're a Democrat and you're listening to me today and you're thinking, oh, I think it's funny, I'm glad Trump is getting hammered the way he's getting hammered, I want y'all to remember something. The tides change, power shifts. It goes out, it comes in. Next time around, it very well could be a Democrat in the crosshairs. Just like I've said before, the lock her up with Hillary Clinton at the Trump rallies. At the time, I thought it was funny. I still think it's funny if I'm being honest about it, but it's not good for the country. I really don't like it when they're talking about putting her in jail for doing what she did with 30,000 emails, having an unsecured server in her basement that was not secure, having classified information on that server that she should not have had on that server. Very similar to what they're charging President Donald Trump with. But the difference is she was never president of the United States. She was never entitled to that stuff. At best, she was what? Secretary of State? That does not give you an absolute right to classified material like it does Donald Trump. Yet she took it another step forward. She went ahead and she wiped it and made a joke about it. She goes, "You mean wipe it like I cleaned it and was doing this type of motion on camera?" I mean, she was literally laughing about it and nothing ever came of it for her, but it did for Donald Trump. And guess what? Our beloved current president, Joe Biden, did exactly the same thing Donald Trump is accused of in this document case. But President Joe Biden's situation is even worse. Why is it worse? Because he disseminated confidential information according to the special prosecutor's report that reported on his findings in this particular case pertaining to Joe Biden. He disseminated this information and talked about this classified information to an individual that's a ghostwriter. From a ghostwriter is basically somebody writing something for you at your behest. And in this situation, apparently he's working on a book, like a autobiography or whatever. This guy's a ghostwriter, meaning he's going to privately write the book for him, get the information together, and to write the book. It's just that simple. But why is it worse than what Donald Trump's even accused of doing? Because Joe Biden is and was receiving money and disclosing classified information. Do you get that? That's called treason. Bluntly, straightforward. That's exactly what it's called. An absolute outrage on there. So it's shameful, just absolutely shameful. So any rate, we'll move on to the next topic. It just I'm interested in what y'all think about it. If you differ with me, put it in the comments below. I've told y'all many times that you don't have to agree with me on this channel. If you have another point of view, you can be a detractor. That's not a problem for me. I appreciate the exchange of views. You just need to be polite about it, and we just need to talk about it like civilized adults. It's really just that simple. We don't have to make it anything any bigger than that. So anyway, moving on. We're gonna let's start diving into, I think we pretty well covered exactly what is going on with this case. And the great news is for Donald Trump. Trust me, he is celebrating and popping the champagne corks. We need to review briefly what's going on in fanny land. I would say fantasy land, but it's not really fantasy land. So let me pull up our next little video right here so we can take a quick peek. And I'll look at some of the comments that's going on here in just 1 second. So let me go ahead and share this screen. I see that Rosemary Fiera is in the conversation again. Thanks for joining us today. All right, here we go. Let's take a look at this here. Now, I've said many times that Megyn Kelly is really on top of this case. She was the one that actually came up with the text messages pertaining, the text message between Ashley Merchant and what's that guy's name? Terrence Bradley. She was not properly credited with this information, but nonetheless, she did disclose this information and got I don't know how she got the text messages, but apparently her and Philip Holloway, that other attorney in Cobb County, Georgia, he's always on Kelly's program. And I think this is him on the left-hand side. I'll have to look. But anyway, let's take a sneak peek and let's see exactly what they're saying here. Follow along with me if you will.
Case has an explicit like soap opera quality to it. It
Yes.
feels like the sort of thing that Tyler Perry might pull together, like this preposterous courtroom drama, like the former divorce attorney who like incidentally just kind of acknowledges explicitly, oh, they definitely had a relationship.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
absolutely know it for sure.
Yeah.
And then on the stand, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my
Well, he's like, God damn.
It was acceptable. It's incredible.
It was
Yeah.
amazing. Now, we've run the clip many times, but my favorite was she's like, you want us to believe you had hunks of cash, thousands and thousands that you just found and gave to Nathan Wade at a time when you were $4,600 under a tax lien. Oh, now you're going to tell me how to pay my bills?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes. In fact, ma'am, yes, I am.
I love the
Actually.
like very sort of shrill defenses, like, oh, again, another black woman's being attacked,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I would
Which
suggest
she even made herself, by the way.
sure. So allowed people to lean in. But for all of us in this country who laughed at Four Seasons Landscaping, right? Who
Which was
laughed
pretty funny.
at some,
right.
which is
Oh my
hilarious.
God, that brought me back.
Who
Oh,
laughed at Rudy Giuliani's makeup,
Giuliani announced
dripping down here,
Yeah.
who laughed at like the My Pillow guy and all these sort of weird clowns who were around Trump advising him about crazy things, all of whom are like, they owe hundreds of millions of dollars in
Correct.
various lawsuits,
Yes.
by the way. If you laughed at all of that, or Trump's hot lawyer that both of you guys like,
Yes.
but who's
Great lawyer.
who's
Halina
bad,
Hava?
who's
Hava?
bad at lawyering from
Yes.
everything I can
But she's
I can
good at
tell.
it,
But you swipe in the right direction, Matt, when you see her profile. That's the important thing.
If you laugh at all those things, and so many people in journalism laughed at all of those things, don't get high and mighty about, oh, we're being too mean to the prosecutor, because those people that you were laughing at, those are private lawyers, turns out, right?
Mhm.
They weren't agents of the court necessarily. These are people who are on the payroll of the city and the state and the county and the whatever. Your taxes are paying for them, and they're behaving this badly.
That's right.
So it is funny, and we're going to laugh because that's what you do. You laugh at all the
It's laugh or
ridiculousness.
cry.
All right, thank you. It's 2024. That's the motto of the year. Then you laugh at this, but also save a little bit of outrage, because you should have impartial and professional behavior among the people who have this awesome power that we've given prosecutors in this country, and they're not acting at all professionally or well.
And by the way, on the race thing, yes, it's like white defense attorneys representing, I don't know if they're all white or black. I actually haven't looked at the defendants in the Georgia case, but they're the two witnesses against Fannie and Nathan
Correct.
are also black.
Yes.
It's like they're doing their best to make it into a black thing. It's failing. I will tell you, we have an interesting update today. We talked yesterday, let me pull it up on my phone, about Terrence Bradley, the difference between Terrence Bradley, in the text to Ashley Merchant, like, yeah, they totally started well before they testified, and I can give you all these names, and these are the people who I think know, versus on the stand, I know nothing. It was,
Speculation.
Sergeant Schultz, right?
Yeah.
Nothing.
I
Nothing.
don't know enough
You
to
should
know
make a
if I was
Hogan's Heroes
lying.
I have the
Something
old,
like
I'm
that.
an ancient person. Honestly, all my references are so old. Somebody once said on Twitter the other day, you're old if you like Frasier. I'm like,
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Well, on the podcast last night, talking to this very issue, I did make a Red Fox reference. So go
that
ahead.
works
with
for
Tom.
me.
Yes.
Who didn't
It's
watch
fine.
it? Okay. So the guy who spoke to Terrence Bradley in between cooperative Terrence Bradley and I Know Nothing Terrence Bradley was, his name is Banks. Okay. I'm trying to remember his first name. Is it
Banks,
Gabe?
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Gabe Banks. And this, we told the audience yesterday that Gabe Banks called, according to Terrence Bradley, after it became pretty clear he was cooperating with the defense in some way, or at least there was a suspicion. And suddenly Terrence Bradley did a 180, no, nothing happened. And so the implication by the defense lawyers at the hearing was he threatened you, right? Like, we don't know what he threatened you with. There's a whole host of things potentially. I don't know.
Now, of course, she's talking about the change of heart by Terrence Bradley. Remember, in January of this year, Terrence Bradley is texting back and forth with Ashley Merchant, and we'll try to take a peek at this in just a second. But he's like BFFs with her, like, yeah, this is when they first got together. You're doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing. And then, of course, he's on the stand now, and he can't remember nothing. So something changed.
Oh, it could be anything, but Gabe this guy, Gabe, is very close friends with Fannie Willis and Nathan Wade. We knew he was friends with Nathan Wade, and we knew that his wife worked for Fannie Willis. Well, now it turns out, let me get the facts correct. Banks was sworn in as a judge pro tem under Fannie Willis in a different court. And not only that, he also invited Fannie Willis to his wedding. And we've seen pictures of Fannie Willis all around his wedding. So Fannie Willis, it's not just Nathan Wade. Fannie Willis is very close, apparently, with this guy Banks, who was the one person, according to Terrence Bradley, who did call him in between cooperative Terrence and Sergeant Schultz Terrence. Doesn't look good.
Doesn't look bad. No. So what's the upshot here? She's removed from the case. There's questions about kind of the credibility of things. They've got to find a new attorney to end up leading the case. But it doesn't necessarily mean the case goes away.
No,
but
it doesn't.
Certainly could mean that it's delayed until after the election.
Correct.
Which,
and that now he would not, as president, have the power
it's a
to
state
pull
case.
that DA off of the case.
Right.
But the thing is, there are real questions about this is Georgia.
Mhm.
It's not New York. You know, the real question about whether there's another DA down there who wants to take this case.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Why would you want to take this on? You'd have to be somebody who's very politically ambitious, who wanted to make yourself a star, which we know is true of Fannie Willis. She hired the media company to monitor her mentions, get back to me with how many articles they're writing about me. She runs to the microphones every time she gets the chance, from the church to beyond. And now any prosecutor knows what he or she's getting themselves into. You've got a very talented team of defense lawyers on a very shitty case. This is a crappy, made-up RICO violation that she just found a way to bring. So who would want this dog? And to have to make it hunt and sick the new president or likely president against you? Like, I don't know that it is clear in a state like Georgia, there's another DA at the ready. And I actually don't even know. I think the way they'd have to do it is there's like an overseeing board that would like decide or try to get a prosecutor to take.
She's correct in what she's talking about. There are several possibilities that could happen, but I've said a long time ago, when you have a case that is taken from one DA, or they're not prosecuting, however you look at it, the case is over, period. No attorney wants to come back behind someone else and take their nasty case. Plus, they know this case is a crooked, vindictive, it is political interference. That's all this case is, and people know it. And she's right. Georgia, despite what you might hear on the news, is generally overall a conservative place. Now, it has become more purple recently. Having said that, I can also tell you these prosecutors, the other prosecutors, the good prosecutors, the prosecutors that are ethical, they don't want to touch this case. No way, no sir.
And I think that board, it's not a bunch of Fulton County Democrats. It's more statewide, which means they're
So they may
probably a
actually
little
look for
redder.
someone impartial. Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So it's the best Trump could hope for.
I just think that you should never count out Americans right now ability to voluntarily self-degrade as they're going about their
I like that. That's
political
a
lives.
hopeful thought.
How many times I need to see this with Trump and his legal team and his personal conduct and other things. Like, you think he's not going to do the next thing, is he? Like, it's been 7-8 years that he's been in our political life. He does the next thing every time.
Every time.
And the people, the Never Trump crew, they do the next thing too.
Yeah.
Or they will come back and relitigate and say, no, like he still is a Russian stooge. They're still holding on to this.
We're at the point where if you go back, and I actually had cause to do this for something I was writing, went back to look at MSNBC and Rachel Maddow in particular in 2016, 17, 18. And it is just a derangement. Watching it with the kind of eyes of right now, after the Mueller report, after everything we know about Russia, that Donald Trump was an agent of the Kremlin, of the KGB, of the FSB, of the Bolsheviks in 1917. Anything they could throw at him was unbelievable. So they tried to do this in every possible way. And you get it from, the Access Hollywood tape, which I mentioned before, all of this stuff. The guy's a bad guy. Okay, well, the people who like him, well, they're deplorables. They're mostly racist. Okay, that number is very, very.
All right, that's pretty well what I want to go over on this particular video. But one of the takeaways I just want to mention, two things. First of all, let's be straight up about it. Donald Trump has been persecuted by the Democrats and by their machinery, at least since he ran for office in 2016. I mean, this is what, 8 years now? They have been hammering him for 8 years. It started with that Russia garbage, and it's just continued. Every type of sleazy thing they can do against this man, they've been trying to do. It was Hunter's laptop. Remember that stuff? It didn't exist, and then it exists. And there's all kinds of salacious stuff on there that they're having very difficult time trying to get from the FBI. It is amazing what's going on here. One last thing I want to tell you on this subject is when we were talking about the documents, one important distinction you must understand pertaining to Hillary Clinton or anybody else when it comes to these documents. This whole case is, were these documents declassified or not that Trump had in his possession? You must understand the following. As president of the United States, he could literally hold the box of documents and say to himself, I hereby declare this unclassified. It's not reviewable. It's not changeable. It's not debatable. It can't be something you seek in court, like a stay or to appeal. There is no appeal. By law, the president of the United States has the sole ability to declassify anything he wants at any time he wants. There is no procedure that he has to go through necessarily. He doesn't have to sign anything. And that's the truth. Donald Trump has said the information was declassified. Now, they say, oh, he held up a piece of paper and said, oh, see this is classified. Well, that doesn't mean it was classified. He could have been just basically using what we call hype. He could have just been, it's called puffery, just trying to make himself look better in front of a reporter. And we all know President Donald Trump loves to do that. I don't see nothing wrong with that. If he wants to hype something up, let him hype it up. But it's important that you understand, Jack Smith wants to put him in a cage because of these documents where no other president or public official has been in trouble or brought up on charges the way Donald Trump has been. And Donald Trump had the sole ability, as he was walking out of the White House, to say, this stuff is declassified. Boom. He can just think it in his mind. These documents are unclassified now. It's really just that simple. And I've had people say, oh, no, that's not true. Really? Go ahead to the USC code and show me where I'm wrong. You can't find it because it doesn't exist. So I just want you to kind of keep that in mind as you are as you're debating this whole situation, because oftentimes, they just don't want to tell you the truth when it comes down to these particular cases. Now, let's jump over. I want y'all to listen to this real quick on my buddy Keith Olbermann. He is going to have a hissy. Wait till you hear this. This is probably one of the funniest things I've heard all day. At least it's brought a nice big smile to my face. So let's take a quick peek at this, and let me see here. Boop, boop, doop, boop, doop, boop. Yeah, I've gotten a little better at using the software. Hopefully it works as smooth as I think it will. Okay, here we go. Now listen to this. Pay attention, because this guy is going to go ape. And
so we begin with Keith Olbermann, who we're adding to our repertoire, justifiably so. Take a watch.
Oh, no. The conservatives on the Supreme Court are Trump's whores. Chief Justice Roberts is a Trump whore, and he can burn in hell. And Justice Alito is a Trump whore, and he can burn in hell. And Justice Gorsuch is a self-contradicting Trump whore, and he can burn in hell. And Justice Kavanaugh is a drunken abuser Trump whore, and he can burn in hell. And Justice Barrett is a handmaid Trump whore, and she can burn in hell. They are corrupt. Wow. They have corrupted the Supreme Court. We will have to remove them from the Supreme Court or create a replacement for the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Oh,
classic.
Excellent. It's a good plan.
Yeah, I think
that's when the whores come in.
He's mentally ill, by the way.
Yeah,
there's something wrong with him. I mean, every time I see him, I thought he disappeared. He used to have a show on television. I don't know if the people remember that, but he used to. It was the worst person in the world.
Yeah.
And the irony it was always him,
Right.
and no one really got that. Yeah. And so, but now he's going to cancel the Supreme Court. Yeah, I can't believe that. He has a podcast? Is that true?
Yes.
I guess they let anyone have podcasts, Michael.
Yeah, we shouldn't be
Listen.
platforming him, Megan?
Because we have to. We listen because we have to.
Yes,
we get clips like that gold. The whores. That's when the
I'm
whores come in.
surprised he didn't find a way to like inappropriately fold in Katie Tur.
Yes,
he
he
always
switches.
mentions.
Yes,
He did it again just the other day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you remember we discussed the first meltdown about
Yes.
her where he's
Yeah.
like, she asked me to write her book. I used to edit her columns and her pieces.
Yes.
Double down with the same story last week.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
an obsession.
It was because, you know why? Because Katie Tur's sin was questioning whether the $450 million judgment against Trump was fair.
Which
Is that-
isn't.
Is it fair? She wasn't saying it's not.
Yeah.
Both of her panelists were like, yes, it's fair.
Of course.
Because she asked the question, he resurrected, he is a sick man.
He's a,
Both former FBI prosecutor panelists on MSNBC. That's all they have.
Yes.
Like they bring a new one every day. Oh, I'm a former FBI prosecutor, and we shouldn't have the First Amendment. And by the way, Donald Trump should pay $1 billion for
Guilty.
waking up.
I do appreciate one thing about Keith Oldman is that in that clip, he said, usually you have all the way back to FDR to pack the court when you're not getting your New Deal stuff through, pack the court. Now we've had more conversations about packing the court. He wants to now replace the court with something else.
Yeah.
We don't know what that is,
The
but I'm
Ober
sure,
Court.
yeah, the Ober Court, in which he says, because you remember in the old show, he used to call everyone sir, you sir, and he would then denounce George W. Bush for
Yeah.
like 20 minutes. I guess it would just be the Ober Court. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Well-
he doesn't want to pack it. He wants to recreate it.
Yeah, good luck. I
Good
mean,
for-
there's
good for
that
him.
pesky thing of Article 3. So I mean, I guess somehow he'll deal with that, but all part of the Democrats' plan.
I mean, it really is amazing that at this point, there's been no decision made apart from we'll hear the case.
Yes.
We'll actually take a look at this.
No, they'll swat Trump down. I mean, the question is it going to be 7-2 or 9-0?
Yeah, he's going
right?
to lose.
He's going to
Yeah,
lose
he's gonna
badly.
lose.
And like John Roberts is going to absolutely peacock that decision, which he will write.
I just want to say, I totally disagree with that. They're always saying, oh, he's going to lose. He's going to lose. They all also said, oh, the Supreme Court would never take this case. Even the conservative commentators like this program are saying, oh, the Supreme Court would never take the case. They just won't take it. Now they're saying they're not trying to be negative against Trump. They're just like, there's no way that he's going to win on that absolute immunity deal. And listen, I'm recording it now. We'll see. It may not be complete, absolute, unchecked immunity, but it might be close if it pertains to his job as president of the United States. I don't see how the Supreme Court doesn't rule that way. It might not be a 9-0 verdict. I give you that. But you got to remember, there's 6 conservative justices on there. John Roberts is kind of a flip-flopper, but it doesn't matter. There's still a supermajority on the court at this time.
You can
Yes.
pretty much
Mhm.
guess.
Yes.
So he will lose. It's just like you're not going to get your trial as soon as you thought.
It's the delay.
But
The whole
he's
thing is the
right.
delay, yeah.
He's won in the process of losing.
Yeah.
The delay is the win
Mhm.
Yeah.
if he gets elected.
Yeah.
If he
Yeah.
doesn't get elected, and we haven't really talked about how that kind of ruins the inside straight. But if he gets elected, he just pulls Jack Smith off of both of these federal prosecutions and he's done. Georgia's falling apart. New York's a joke. Both of the federal prosecutions will go away if Trump gets reelected.
But Florida documents. My
It's going away.
boxes.
He'll just pull Jack Smith off of the case. That's it. He doesn't. That case
right.
is not going to go to trial before Trump gets reelected, if he gets reelected.
Okay.
So all he has to do, he doesn't have to pardon himself. Only when there's a conviction do you have to pardon. He just says, Jack Smith,
That's not exactly correct. A president does not have to wait for a verdict to pardon anybody, including himself. He can issue a pardon anytime he chooses.
fired. My attorney general is probably going to be Mike Davis, frequent guest on our show, is the new sheriff in town. He's going to decide whether this is an appropriate case for an independent prosecutor or counsel, a special counselor. And the answer is going to be no. So both the Fed prosecutions die if Trump gets reelected. So now we're only talking about Georgia and New York. And that's why he just needs delay in the federal prosecutions. And the Mar-a-Lago case, he's got it because that's just such a morass with the classified who can see what. And the J6 case was the worst one. Chutkan doesn't like him. The DC jury won't like him. Obviously, Jack Smith doesn't like him. And that's the case he just is that she can't issue any rulings now. She can't do anything in this case until the Supreme Court issues its decision, which probably won't be till the end of June. And she can't even keep motion practice going. Like, let's keep pedal to the metal just in case. No, it has to all be shut down. So there's no way she's going to get this case tried when she gets, the green light, which we all think she's going to get, that Trump won't win the actual argument at SCOTUS between July 1st and November.
Again, I disagree with the winning part, but whatever. She's pretty correct on the rest of it. The cases are over, folks. That's what I've been telling you. This is over, and Donald Trump is well on his way to having all these cases taken care of.
First, not a chance.
So that leaves Manhattan, which he would, let's say, it's the weakest case and the one most likely to be tried, and maybe the one most likely he would lose.
Yeah.
Just because it would be pretty unfair, and he will get zero, I think, political damage done by being declared guilty in the Manhattan case, because people will see it, I think, transparently as this is just a political hit job. I mean, look at the way that Tish James is comporting herself these days.
Yeah.
This is like, I mean, and this has something to do with the Fannie Willis too. Like, you're not bringing your best here, your best foot forward, saying we are serving impartial justice. We are being professional in our job. No, they're going scoreboard, and you're like an elected official. What are you doing? That's not building any confidence from people that there's any kind of sense of rule of law. A trusted third party is out there delivering justice equally. So if Trump gets convicted only in Manhattan,
New York has humiliated itself. New York used to be a shining star amongst benches and jurists, and now
New York's going to have a lot of problems unless and until they make that whole situation go away, because nobody's going to really want to invest money in the state of New York. If I had a big old pile of cash I was looking to invest, and I ask you the same question, would you want to go to New York City and invest it? You know, these business people are thinking in the back of their mind, hey, if I have a falling out with who's ever in power, I'm in trouble. They're going to take whatever I have away from me. One other thing I want to tell you about this is not new. This type of corruption has been going on for a long time. I've seen it myself. I've had a slight taste of it myself. I have seen others go through this process, and it's brutal. You make the wrong deep state individual mad at you. You're not in the right party. You're not in the right clique or affiliation. And they can bring down the full weight of the state, the full weight of the feds, whatever agency is looking into you. And it is very scary. It is the way our society works today. The Supreme Court is going to hear a case very soon involving a principle called the Chevron doctrine. I will be talking about this at length, and it sounds like a real snoozer, don't it? It's not. You're going to want to tune in for that, because the Chevron doctrine is going to affect all of our lives. It has affected all of our lives, and depending on how the Supreme Court comes out on this, is going to go a long ways in determining how much control the federal government is going to have over us. The real quick version about this is, generally speaking, the Congress or whoever is our legislative branch has to basically pass a law or rule in order for us to be bound by it. Well, under the Chevron doctrine, they basically pass these laws, and it says whoever the administrator is or whoever the secretary is, they can pretty well make up the laws and or rules as they go along. That's what it says. And that's kind of been the practice in the United States for a long time. But now the problem is people have been getting hammered by these rules. Just look what happened to President Donald Trump in New York State with this bogus $450 million verdict. It kind of fits in there a little bit, because you have so much discretion given to these bureaucrats, these deep state individuals all over the place. That Chevron case that I'm talking about basically involves one of these small agencies like the Fish and Wildlife Agency, and they decided just unilaterally that hey, if you're going to be taking people on a cruise, you have to hire one of our inspectors to go with you to monitor whatever you're doing out at sea. We want to make sure you are not taking more fish than you're supposed to. So it's a serious expense for these charter fishing companies and the other recreation businesses associated with it. And finally, someone said, I had enough. They got the right funding, and the Supreme Court is going to hear it. And let's hope it goes the correct way it's supposed to go. I want everybody to remember that tomorrow I will be live. I always say, Lord willing, if I'm here tomorrow, I will be here. Whenever they start to go live, as soon as I possibly can, I'm going to be broadcasting it live. As I said, I have a feed already set up, ready to go. It should be a day of a lot of fun, especially if you like these type of cases. the last hearing definitely did not disappoint. I love seeing Bradley get, frazzled and cooked. Man, it was brutal. He was getting tore up on that stand. You were witnessing someone trying to beat a perjury rap. And to be perfectly honest with you, I have no idea why he would risk his law license, his freedom, his reputation for two losers like this Nathan Wade and Fannie Willis. It's just beyond comprehension why they would even consider doing that. I just think that is just a bunch of complete and utter nonsense. I'm curious as to what you guys think about it. I mean, I really am. So, hey, here's the bottom line. Join me tomorrow. Thanks for joining me today. I always say, my friends, keep that mind free, never give up. And until next time, I am J.R. Dukes.